notion that despite absolutely horrendous conditions and cultivation of an attitude by his society that would make him think that he is completely useless and helpless, despite all of that, he has been reason. All of those attributes that I just mentioned to you, those are the attributes. Resilience is about thriving, about what I'd like to call bouncing back together. Most people in poverty, particularly, let's say, slum situations, are either being defeated by it or barely surviving. They're not thriving. Resilience is not about, oh, I can get through every day. Resilience is about being hit by adversity. How can I use that? What kind of traits, what kind of conditions, what kind of attributes do I have internally that I can use to manipulate that environment and improve my life situation? So the question for us at Corstone is how do we make people like Daniel the norm and not the exception? Most people in slums conditions and in poverty are not in a thriving mode, right? Daniel is somebody who isn't thriving. So how do we create a science around that, let's say a technology around that, and a systematic way to help millions of people to get out of poverty by starting from the inside? So the good news is there's about 40 years of research into resilience. Unfortunately, almost none of that has been done in developing countries. So resilience has looked at people in poverty, looked at people dealing with severe health crisis, severe challenges and adversity, but mostly the research has been done in Western countries, US, Australia, Canada, and so, UK, and so on. So this is what's called a holistic or ecological model of resilience. And resilience takes place, there's emotional resilience, physical resilience, what's called educational resilience, and social or family community resilience. What the research has shown, very interestingly, is that if you start with emotional resilience, that affects resilience in all the other domains. So in other words, if you want to improve health, and you want to improve education, and you want to improve community, start from the inside out. Start with the individual. Start with emotions, start with thoughts, start with attitudes and behaviors that I have control. Our largest program is a program called Girls First, and this photo is from a school where we're working in India, in a very rural, remote, and extremely poor state called Bihar. It's one of the two poorest states in India. The population in that state alone is 100 million people. A bit of a different scale than over here. Girls First is basically an empowerment program for girls that starts with emotional resilience. And the curriculum that we've developed, it runs once a week over 6 months, just 1 hour per week. 1 hour per week. We use a train-the-trainer model, so we train teachers, and we train community women to become facilitators. They go through about 5 days of intensive training, and then they meet with the girls in groups, maybe around 15 girls per group, and meet once a week for an hour, again, for a period of 6 months. The program itself starts with self-concept. Who am I? What are my strengths? What is my character? What does that even mean? What are my values? Most of the girls actually give us the feedback. Nobody ever told us we had strengths. Which is something that probably none of us in this room would tune into otherwise we wouldn't. So it's a pretty big, awakening moment. From there we go into interpersonal emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, interpersonal communications, problem solving, conflict resolution. We build a lot of bonds between the girls, and it turns out that in many of these areas, by the way, trafficking of teenage girls is a huge issue. And it turns out one of the biggest things you can do with the girls is simply to help them to help each other to stay in school. A girl who's not in school is much more likely to be trafficked. Lots of the programs that are anti-trafficking don't work. But if you get the girls to know each other and to help each other, they will go around of their own accord into the villages and go visit the girls who are not in school to make sure that their families are not trafficked. Most of the girls in this community, by the way, are married between 14 to 15 years. So, impact and evaluation, a hugely important part. What I said earlier about a marriage of heart and mind, you can see that the program that we put together has a lot of heart in it. But what we're very interested to see is how can we scale that, and are there ways to put a science behind that, building on the evidence base that's been there in other countries, but making that specific to the type of communities that we work in, looking at impact, how to measure it, what to measure, what kind of tools are available. It's really, really complex working in these kinds of communities. What you see here is a whole list of different assessment tools that we have validated for use in the communities where we work. Many of these tools other tools have been validated elsewhere. For example, we tried to use a tool that's been well validated for self-esteem. It's a very simple 5-question tool. When we piloted it with the girls, it turned out nobody had any clue really what self-esteem was, and the results that came back were completely inconsistent, and we literally had to throw the tool out. So I don't know if you're having discussions over these 2 days about evaluation and assessment and the importance of that. What I'd like to say about it is it's critically important, but it's even more critically important to know that your tools work and that you're actually measuring the things that you think you're measuring. And of course, like anything good in science, it starts with what questions you ask. So we look at impact around mental and emotional well-being, physical well-being, social well-being, academic well-being. We're very interested, you saw the graph earlier about if you start with emotional resilience, that will have impact on other areas. So our largest study right now, we're actually doing a major 4-arm randomized control trial in Bihar. Over 3,000 girls are enrolled in this trial. And what we're looking at is girls who get emotional resilience curriculum versus just a standard adolescent health curriculum, meaning reproductive and sexual health, good nutrition, don't use drugs, those kind of things. If you also have emotional resilience training, do you actually do better in terms of adolescent health versus girls who only get the adolescent health training by themselves? We have a major trial going on right now, and I'm going to show you just a tiny little bit of the results because we don't have them in yet. Another issue that we're interested in is academic well-being. So for example, the literature over here says that youth who are more resilient will do better in school. And the standard way to look at that would be school attendance and grades. So we do the same thing in Bihar. We're working in about 70 schools. It turns out that in Bihar there are no written exams. There's no actual true grades that are given. And school attendance records are very spotty and often falsified. So again, just giving you a sense of our intentions of what we'd like to measure versus the reality that we come up against. Good news is we know that some of our things definitely work. Here's just one shot of a resilience scale. This is, again, a standardized scale. It's been validated. We've piloted it in India. And it looks at things like coping skills, self-confidence, self-concept, adaptability, courage, benefit finding, meaning can you find benefit in things that are adverse or difficult or challenging for you and use that situation to improve yourself or improve your environment. Focus. If you're familiar with Daniel Goleman's work in emotional intelligence, Daniel is coming out with a new book called Focus. And it's actually, from the reviews that I've seen, it's a tremendous book, and I highly recommend it. So anyway, 6-month program, once a week for 1 hour, and we've seen a 23% improvement in resilience in the girls. These are, again, roughly 14 to 16-year-old adolescent girls versus a control group, which basically no change.
Stephen, may I ask
Yes.
you a question?
Sure.
Will you share your slides?
Sure,
with us?
absolutely.
Because I see a lot of people taking photographs.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to take notes, but if you'd share it, that would be
More than happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so basically, we have a research team in the U.S., and Kate, who's in the back here, is also my wonderful wife and partner, heads up our research, and so if you have research questions, she's actually going to have a lot better answers. And in answer to your question, in about 2 weeks, we'll have a whole slew of data points on our first big giant batch of data. So that'll be very interesting to report. Lastly, I wanted to talk about how much time do I have?
I was just going to hold up your 5 minutes.
That's on my 30 minutes or on my 20 minutes?
Yeah, sorry, I was looking for that. Thank you, Denise. I'm sorry I missed you at 5 minutes.
Okay, so growth and replication, also known as scale. What you'll see here is, just like in the private sector, there's a whole spectrum of strategies that you can use for scale, right? Wholly owned, which means high control, joint ventures with a local partner, social franchise, licensing, partnership. On one end of the spectrum, you have a high level of control, but that may vary, and you'll have a higher level of quality, but it will likely inhibit your scale that you can go to. On the other side, you have flexibility, a lot of flexibility, let's say by a local partner on the ground, but as things scale, the quality is going to dissipate. This is a major issue with train-the-trainer models. We use a train-the-trainer. You have to have some degree of standardization, certification, rigorous training, ongoing mentorship behind the scenes, and at the same time, you have to allow the local partner to adapt.